In today's episode of Release Radar, we're going to be taking a look at the MSI non-glare ultra-wide 21:9, 8 millisecond response time, 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide gaming monitor. Today's video is sponsored by me. Check the link in the description below to come follow me on Twitch and hang out while I play games live. So, I've been using this ultra-wide monitor for almost exactly a year now, so I feel like I have a lot of ups and downs about it and a lot of stuff I can share with you, but let's go ahead and start by looking at the core specs. So, this monitor has a 100 Hz refresh rate with a resolution of 3440 by 1440. It has a curved screen with a 21:9 aspect ratio and an 8 millisecond response time. And I know a lot of you probably heard that 8 millisecond response time and were slightly turned off by it, but trust me, those 7 milliseconds are something that are hardly noticeable, if noticeable at all. Now, before we get further into the review, there is something that I want to let you guys know right out the gate. This monitor does not have native VESA mounting capabilities. There is a $20 adapter you can get from a company named Human-Centric, but MSI does not locally manufacture their own VESA mount bracket, and there is no VESA mounting built into the monitor by default. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the I/O that this monitor has. So on one side you're going to see the standard 3-prong power connector, and then you also have a display port, an HDMI port, and a DVI port. Now I wish there was an aux out on this, and it looks like there's like a cutout for them to put one, but they just didn't, and that is kind of disappointing to me. So now let's touch on some of those awesome features that this monitor has in terms of gamers. So 100 Hz panel is awesome, and I really do think it gives me a slight advantage over a 60 Hz panel in terms of reaction times and how fast I can click on people's heads in games. And another thing is that this monitor has an on-screen crosshair with multiple different options that we'll take a look at here in a second. And in a game like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, when you're playing, let's say, hardcore mode, having this on-screen crosshair that you can turn on to get an idea of where your shots will go when you hit fire is really cool. And in terms of the on-screen crosshair, there are a couple of different options, so let's go ahead and take a look at those right now. And there is a white version of every single one of those crosshairs, but my camera would not focus on those. Now it's time to take a look at some backlight bleed. Now if you don't know what backlight bleed is, it's where if you have a completely black image pulled up on the monitor, you can see white bleed from behind the display a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys what that looks like with this monitor right now. And to put this into perspective, I'm in a completely dark room. The only lights are from RGB from my peripherals and everything. And I will say that the backlight bleed on this display is honestly, it's not that good. You can see light bleeding from towards the center where the lights behind the display are emitting. And because this isn't anything crazy like an OLED display, you can very well see the white light seeping through behind the black. Now let's take a look at some of the different display modes that this monitor has built in. This monitor has 5 different display modes, and they are Movie, FPS, RTS, iSaver, and User. And the User one is something you can completely customize yourself. Now I will say the difference between Movie, FPS, and User is very small, it's very minimal. You can actually hardly even notice a difference with this camera. But when you switch it over to RTS, for some reason that one just blasts the contrast. I'm not a huge fan of that. I never use that display mode, but maybe that's something that you want for maybe being able to see things better in RTS games. I don't really know. I don't play those. So there's one other thing I want to touch on before I wrap up this review, and that is ghosting on this monitor. And if you don't know what ghosting is, it's kind of when you're looking around in a game and you can see the pixels kind of, or like the scenes kind of fade into each other rather than just immediately change to what the next frame should be. So I'm going to have a video up showing you what bad ghosting looks like, and then I'm going to show you the ghosting on this monitor. And looking at this video, which is from a channel called Naz Gaming, I'll have a link to the source in the description below. This video shows basically this like highlighting effect that's happening from changing from pixel to pixel. And this is what bad ghosting looks like. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at what ghosting looks like on this monitor. And so taking a look at this footage playing some Generation 0 on high settings with motion blur turned off, I'm going to run up to this tree right here and just kind of look around similar to what that dude did in that video. And ghosting is really just not a problem on this monitor. I've had this for about a year now. I've never noticed any bad cases of ghosting. And so all in all, I think that is just not a problem here, which is awesome. And so now we're at the end of the video, and I'm just going to be giving you my raw thoughts on what I like and don't like about this monitor. And my main disappointments with this monitor are the features that it's lacking. As I mentioned earlier in the video, it does not have any VESA mounting, and you have to pay $20 on top of what you already spent for the monitor to get a second hand bracket from a company that's not even MSI, which is just kind of stupid to me. And then on top of that, this monitor is not very position based, if that makes any sense. There's not like adjustable there is semi-adjustable tilt and pivot and stuff, but it's not as flushed out as the Viotech monitor that I reviewed about a couple months ago. I'll have a link to that below if you want to check it out. And then the lack of an aux cable is kind of annoying. I wish there was an aux out on this monitor, because you can't use it as your primary audio source. You can't plug your headphones into the monitor. And so if you already have a device using the audio out from your computer, like speakers, and those speakers don't have an aux in on them for you to use headphones with, and you were thinking about getting this monitor and using aux from this monitor into your headphones, you just can't do that because there's not an aux cable. But I think all in all, pushing all of that aside, the 100 Hz refresh rate is amazing for gaming. The ultra-wide field of view is awesome. And then stacked on top of that, with this monitor, you have a resolution of 3440 by 1440, which is like 2K or 3K, and games just look incredible. Now, I will say I have a video that I did recently about how hard it is to run an ultra-wide monitor like this. It's not necessarily that easy to push this kind of graphics and whatnot, but if you have something like an RTX 2070, RTX 2080, or RTX 2080 Ti, and all the different variants like the 2080 Super and the 2070 Super or whatever, paired with a beefy CPU, I would say 6 to 8 cores, and at least 16 gigs of RAM, you should be able to get the most out of all of the games at high to ultra settings at this 2K resolution and ultra-wide. And so that's it for the video. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe for more content. I actually have another video coming out later this week. I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent with uploads on this channel. Me and some friends are also starting a podcast and a gaming channel, and they're both called The Gameverse. So there's the Gameverse podcast and then the Gameverse plays. Links to everything will be down below, as well as videos that I used and products that I featured in this video. Hope you guys found this helpful. Have a good one.